Good morning. I will now call to order the Monday, August 21st, 2023 regular town council meeting. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, up first on the agenda is a memorandum of the August 7th, 2023 regular town council meeting. A copy has been posted. Are there any questions from councilors?
Make a motion to approve.
And first by Councilor Garrett. Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next would be the approval of the August 21st, 2023 claims. Are there questions from councilors? Questions at all?
Motion to approve. Second.
First by Councilor Trailer, second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next would be the fire department new employee and promotion presentation. Chief Van Gorder.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. I'm excited to be here this morning for the swearing in of our community's newest 4 firefighters, as well as the recent promotion of 2 engineers and 4 lieutenants and 4 newly appointed chief officers. Before I call them forward and have President Plunkett assist me with administering the oath of ceremony, I want to be sure and thank a few people. For our probationary firefighters, as you are very much aware, you are here today because of the instructors, your fellow firefighters that help teach you and support you along the way, and most importantly, your families. And to our new officers, similarly, I want to say thank you to your coworkers who are in attendance here today, as well as your families. You are here today because of your hard work and the support from your family. So I want to say thank you very much. This time, I would ask that President Plunkett please come down and assist me in administering the oath of office. We're going to do this in 6 different groups. The first group that we'll have come forward will be our probationary firefighters. They would come front and center. That'd be Austin Alcorn, Trey Cobb, Xavier Davis, and Jesse Felming. These 4 probationary firefighters, center up and send the room again, already had their badges pinned on them by their family members, their recruit graduation 2 weeks ago. And today I would ask that President Plunkett administer the oath of office.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana.
A little long, Jason.
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my official duties of the office of firefighter. All right, for the town of Zionsville. Regardless of race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God. Thank you. Congratulations.
At this time, if we could have firefighter John Ball and Joey Goltz, please come forward in their respective family. John Ball has his girlfriend, Alyssa, and their daughter, Jane, with them. And then firefighter Goltz has his wife, Rebecca, here. And they'll be administered their oath of office. And at the conclusion of their oath of office, their family will pin their badge on them.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my duties of the office of engineer for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, or color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God.
Congratulations. This time we'll move on to the merit rank of lieutenant. You have firefighter Smith with his wife Rosa. Come forward. Firefighter Quigley would please come forward with his wife Jess. Firefighter Luttrell with his wife Lauren, and firefighter Snyder with his wife Mandy.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my duties of the office of lieutenant for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God. Congratulations.
But I think it's a long ago. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we'll have firefighter Steve Hayes come forward for the appointed position of battalion chief and his wife Deb.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my duties of the office of battalion chief for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God. Congratulations.
We'd have firefighter Sparks come forward for the position of division chief. With him pinning his badge on this morning will be his wife Bonnie.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my official duties of the office of division chief for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God. Congratulations.
The final position this morning would be for deputy chief. Firefighter Jason Potts, please come forward. With him this morning is his wife Tessa and his son Drew, and also firefighter Gibbons, who's here this morning with his daughter Kenzie and son Tatum.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge all of my official duties of the office of Deputy Chief for the town of Zionsville, regardless of the race, creed, color, religion, sex, or national origin of the persons I serve, so help me God. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. That concludes our swearing in and oath of office. For the firefighters in attendance, you're welcome to, and families, you're welcome to leave at this time. The council does have other business will beginning, but if you guys want to leave at this time, feel free to do so, or feel free and stay.
Congratulations to all
I'd
of you.
leave.
That's very cool. I didn't know that. That's a new one. Yeah, maybe I do.
You really don't.
There's something in it. Maybe they mean there.
Yeah.
You got better. Yeah, both. First one would be just like the whole thing. I'm better be like, it's gotta be on the right. Yeah.
It's hazing the new guys.
All right. Moving along, next is a request to speak on agenda items. Amy, do we have any requests to speak?
No, we do not.
All right, up next is the administration update. We did not receive anything from the mayor or the administration, so we'll move along to town council update. Are there any updates from councilors? Okay, we'll move on to the first item of old business. This is the settlement in the Seaside Ice America lawsuit. Heather, can I ask you to give us a introduction on this or a narrative on this, please?
Yes, so we currently have a settlement agreement between the town of Zionsville and Seaside, which was the vendor for the ice rink during Winterfest. They are looking for us to approve the settlement agreement, which I believe has been circulated and you've all had a chance to review. And so today the action would be to allow for the town council president on behalf of the full town council to sign that settlement agreement. It has been signed by the Parks Board as well as the mayor, is my understanding. And so this is the last piece to be able to close out the settlement with Seaside Corporate.
Are there any questions from counselors on this?
How about a comment?
Yeah,
My comment would be that this was handled incredibly poorly. Instead of paying for this once or even twice, at last time I checked, we paid for it 3 times by way of paying initially, which we lost. This settlement is twice. All the legal fees is the 3rd time. I would suspect when all the legal fees are in, we will have paid for it 4 times. When a simple conversation, rather than letting everything go to legal, could have prevented this. We could have paid for it once. We could have paid for it even at worst case twice, but we're paying for it 4 times because we let not we, the administration would rather go to court than talk to anybody.
Well, and to add to that, I mean, this council's been pretty adamant on financial controls should have caught this to begin with. We should have only paid for it once, but I think your point's very valid there, Brian.
yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I don't like this at all. I mean, I've shared with you guys that I think it's this was a clear breakdown in internal controls on our part, and I struggle with it. And at the same time, I also struggle with allowing additional litigation to continue to linger and more special meetings and more attorney phone calls to ultimately get to where we probably are today. So any other comments from counselors? I will make a motion to that this council gives the president the authority to sign the settlement on behalf of the town council.
Second.
Second by Counselor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is first item of new business, the Zionsville Pathways Committee appointment. We have an appointment, a vacant spot on this committee, and the committee has asked for Brad Gressel to be appointed. Are there any questions or comments from counselors?
I guess I would just comment, having had a chance to meet Brad and sit down with him. He's the perfect person to be appointed to this role. He has been very diligent in making this a passion of his, and some of the work that he's done has been pretty remarkable. So I just appreciate all that he's done, and I think it'd be a wonderful appointment.
Yeah, I've known Brad for, gosh, probably 5 or 6 years now. And that name might sound familiar because last meeting, his wife had the tree presentation. So that's certainly appreciate folks being involved with the town. Are there any questions or comments from counselors? Otherwise, I would accept a motion.
To make a motion to appoint Brad Gressel to the Pathways Committee, please.
Yeah, first from Counselor Melton, second from Counselor Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you very much. Up next would be Zionsville Pathway Committee presentation. And we have, I believe we have Quincy Cunningham and Justin Hage and Brad Gressel.
Good morning, members of the council. My name is Justin Hage, and I serve as the chair of the Pathways Committee. As you mentioned, I'm up here with our newest member, Brad, and then Quincy also serves on the committee with me. We just wanted to give a quick overview of what our committee does and some recommendations based on some work we've been doing, honestly, over the past couple of years about pathways. When my family first moved to Zionsville, one of the things that was really important to us was trails. That was something we really enjoyed. We live in the Von Terra neighborhood, so super excited that we have a rail trail that comes to us. We have connectivity along Zionsville Road that allows us to get to the village. And I think our work as a committee is to try to share and have that same connectivity for all parts of our town and really have connections to parks and schools and that sort of thing. So again, we're a committee that really works on creating recommendations for trail pathways and trails and the actual routes of such trails. And then also kind of locations specifically for those and then policies around that as well. We're also here to promote the benefits of trails and then also talk about ways in which we can get both two designations. One is the bike-friendly communities and another one is walk-friendly communities. And these are national organizations that, based on very extensive applications, allow you to get these designations, which are helpful for economic development and also just generally advertising that our town is open to that type of connectivity. This year we have the bronze level the bronze level designation. And I would be remiss if I didn't share that part of the work that our committee does is also working alongside the Parks Department, the Planning Department, and then also Public Works. So really appreciate all the assistance we've gotten from Jared and Lance and many others. We've also worked alongside schools. So I think it's just important to think too about how trails they kind of sit across different areas. Some trails are a park, they're linear trails, linear parks. Others are more pathways along roads, so more in Lance's bailiwick, but then some sort of crossover. And then there's also really important engagement with schools as it relates to connectivity to schools as well. Is it possible to move the slides forward as well? Sorry. Okay, cool.
He's got it.
I think I just finished that one. Yeah. So next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. And I just wanted to just a little bit of a preface to some of the specific recommendations we have. Just a little bit of background on the work that we did to get to these recommendations. This committee has been in existence for quite some time. And so we took really the work of former members, we took input from community members, and then just a lot of deep dives at looking at Google Maps. And we've actually done some work. There's a member of our committee who's very IT savvy, much more so than me, and we've actually got a platform that we can share with you all and publicly as well eventually that will kind of really allow you to dig deep and go down into the sort of the Google Earth level and see these trails and where they might be. We also went based off of the 2016 Zionsville Trails Implementation Plan, which you can tell, obviously all the counselors know and everyone in the public knows there's been a lot of development since 2016 across our town. So there are new needs for trails across the community. And our objectives, our priorities really were to help fill in gaps. So where development has occurred, many of you know, as part of planning, there is the requirement for trails to be put in around the perimeter of developments for the most part. And so really where those gaps might occur, where there's ability to connect more residents to our village core, the ability to connect people to schools and parks. And then lastly, just any type of safety issues that might be created as, people are already trying to get on a bike or walk from point A to point B, and they end up doing it alongside the road or something like that, that there might be the opportunity for a pathway. So really the committee's identified about four priority routes that I would really call them sort of consideration as part of the next budgeting process and future budgeting processes. I want to be clear for the council and members of the public, these aren't necessarily what I would call funding requests, but rather our role is to make a recommendation for you to put into the pot as part of prioritization and as part of work with the departments across our town, that these are things that, again, based on public input and our research, think could really be valuable in the coming years. So with that, I'll have Brad give a little bit more of a detail on the first two of those.
Thank you. If you want to jump to the next slide. So the first pathway route that we've called out, kind of the top priority, is really the Michigan Road corridor. This area, I think all of us know, has had rapid growth recently. And to Justin's point about filling in the gaps, we took a look at the east side of Michigan Road primarily, as a lot of developments like Brittany Chase, Hidden Pines, the new Opelousas crossing are either built out or coming to fruition. We factoring in like Census Bureau estimation, there's at least 2,500 residents living on that corridor that have direct access to Michigan Road on the east side. And really within that priority list of like how this got to the top of the list is
access into the village. So if you could get all these residents down to Willow Road, there's a direct path straight into the village. And if you're looking at distance wise, there's a little chart there that shows a block in red. For reference, Brittany Chase is 2 miles to the village core, and Opelousas Crossing is 3 miles to the village core. So relatively close location. So again, growing rapidly. Another thing I would point out here, just north of Interactive Academy, Hinkie Development, who has been doing the Holiday Farms project and has a couple others north approved or being reviewed upcoming. They currently own that land and just recently have submitted plans with Century, another developer, to put a senior assisted living facility in that area. So something to look at, like it's continuing to grow again. So the timing for a project like this is good to kind of work with that partnership to fill this out. If you look right now, the areas that are needed, the gaps, if you will, they're 2,100 to potentially 3,500 feet if you include that Hinkie Development project. So 2,100 is less than half of a mile. The other thing is Michigan Road, or 421, is a state highway. So obviously there's a partnership with anything that you would do. I actually had the opportunity to have a recent discussion with the deputy commissioner of the Crawfordsville district. So that's our NDOT district, and learned that there will be improvements coming to Michigan Road. They're mainly essentially turning it to a 3-lane type of, for safety reasons. So it's probably like a center turn lane or some pass lanes. It's not, from what I've been told, it's not going to be a 5-lane. So that actually benefits pathways, because if you don't want to put a pathway in and then it gets eaten up by a 5-lane extension. So that would benefit a project like this, and it wouldn't really necessarily impede with it. The paths currently that are in place that developers were required to put in are up to, I think, 45 feet off the road. So that's a decent buffer. If you can imagine yourself walking along the highway, you don't want to be right up on it. There's also relatively new development in this area, and most new development has larger setbacks and distances from the road. Some of the others that we'll show coming up, the homes are older and closer to the road. So that's another benefit of this route. And something else to point out, just south of Interactive Academy and between the Hidden Pines neighborhood, Cox Creek runs through there, which is a tributary into Eagle Creek. It runs under the highway. And because all the pieces weren't in place, the developers of Hidden Pines didn't complete a full bridge, pedestrian bridge over the creek. However, they have set up a fund with the town. It's got $41,000 in it. So definitely in today's economy, not going to build a pedestrian bridge. But what's interesting is that amount is earmarked and has to be used for a path at that specific location. So it's just another piece of the puzzle. So I think that's mostly for that one. So if you want to jump to the
That's a
next.
quick question on that before you move on. When we approved Holiday Farms, that development, one of the requests from Hinkie was to become a TIF.
Yeah.
One of the ideas floated by Hinkie to justify the TIF was a connector over Michigan that would allow the east side neighborhoods to cross over into the west, cross over Michigan, effectively get into the trails within Holiday Farms and south. Do you know if there's been any discussion around that component as it relates to the pathway committee? I know he hasn't presented any TIF asks yet, but I certainly would encourage that one as a good benefit to get people safely across the road.
Yeah, it's definitely something being discussed in all of District 5, as you probably know. I know when the TIF was presented, that was one of the selling points of the project, especially with the clubhouse, if you will, that is now in place at Holiday Farms. It's not just residents of that neighborhood that can buy into that. So I live in kind of in that area, and I see kids on bikes and golf carts crossing the highway a lot. So it's definitely something I would like to see. From what I've learned is all of the TIF is not built out, so the dollars are not coming in yet to fund something like that. But a safe crossing, I think is how it was described, is on the list of potential projects that will be pursued. Doesn't have to be all of those. It kind of depends on how much money is in place. And it's not clear in the TIF how that crossing happens. So is it over?
Yeah.
Is it under? Or is it, hopefully not, but does it have to become just a, a marked crossing over the road? But I mean, that's something that this committee has discussed, but it's something that we hope, the TIF money rolls in and becomes another piece of it, because yes, you get over to, you cross over into Holiday Farms, then you've got access to Turkey Foot.
Yep.
You can get south. That's great. Right now, this area of the east is on a metaphorical island right now. They can't get down to Willow Road is essentially the argument for this path.
And we may be able to, rather than waiting on that TIF bucket to fill up, bond against that TIF capacity to accelerate that too. It's probably outside the purview maybe of the pathway committee, but it is certainly something to think about rather than having to wait for something bad to happen to do it, and rather get in front of it than have to wait for the money to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brad, real quick, we're seeing why exactly you're the ideal person to be in this role. When you and I sat down and you were able to use Google Maps, we were drilled way down into these details, but that was before we knew about the potential extension to that extra lane on Michigan. And I know you addressed it, but the way you've outlined this, do you see any concerns where that third lane or that construction, and it's not even just where the lane is, it's just during construction even, do you see needing to wait until they do that? Because there's a lot more than just where's the trail going to end up. There's a lot of construction, there's stuff that may have to be tore up under the road. What are your thoughts on that, or what did NDOT have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do this professionally. I would just say that the pieces that are in place now, like if you look across Brittany Chase, you look across the Bridlewood neighborhood, those are the areas that immediate connections could probably be explored that a 421 expansion really would not impact. I don't really think it would impact the land, the interactive or the Holiday currently owned, or sorry, Hinkie owned land now. I think that is really, can we lean into having or requiring the developer to build a frontage path on there? And I think one other thing I omitted was Interactive Academy has about 1,400 feet linear going up, that they don't have a path now, but they've given like a verbal agreement to, nothing in writing, but a verbal agreement to Hinkie that if they built the path, they could have their right of way or easement or what have you across that. So that's why the timing, maybe there's an opportunity as that Century project, which is the assisted living project, is being proposed. Maybe the town can partner with them to get some of that built out at the developer's cost. But to your point, I don't think the expansion of 421, I don't think that if it's only 3 lane and it's probably over up to 8 years away, that waiting on that, it's such a 2 to 3 lane expansion.
I thought I heard 2027, so I could be,
Sorry.
I thought I heard 2027, so I don't know what the time, that's the timeline I heard.
Oh, okay, maybe.
Well, I'll ask another question at the end about actual budgetary conversations, but thank you. Appreciate you.
Joe, you want to jump to the next one? The next one that we pointed out, and I guess recently we've heard that this may also be currently on the radar of the town, I guess, but this is kind of a result of the Marysville Road or 875 extension with the roundabouts that's kind of created that new north-south corridor. That's led to new developments like the Ashburn directly to the southwest of that roundabout, and the Wild Air project that's going to be coming. There's going to be a lot of people living in this area. And Whitestown Road, which runs east-west, kind of angles to the northwest as you head towards that roundabout. Basically from Cobblestone Lakes to that roundabout, there isn't a pedestrian connection. So we've looked at could that be extended? It's about 3,000 linear feet, so just under half a mile. This would require a little bit more land acquisition, I believe, than the previous project. And let me see what it says. Yeah, so again, older homes kind of along that Pheasant Run, Wren Way entrance. Those are the two neighborhoods that are between there. The homes sit a little closer to the road. There's driveways with culverts and ditches through there. Definitely doable, but just kind of pointing those out. But if Whitestown Road is going to receive any improvements, pathways alongside of that are always desirable. So this would also have, it's kind of more difficult for this one to get an exact count of residents because outside of Cobblestone Lakes, there's some one-off individual homes, but it still would have a very large impact to have that in place before like the Wild Air project would happen.
Brad, if I can interject just briefly on that, that one has been funded for design for 2023 and it is in, there is a request for 2024 for land acquisition for that.
Okay.
I will also say that this project is interesting because half of it in this particular project is there are commitments by the DeRossi Estates when that was created, that development for those homeowners to pay for that pathway in front of their property. And I know that several of them are eager to.
Right. Yep. Okay. If, we can jump to 3 if there are no other questions. I think Quincy's going to run us through the last 2. Yeah, sorry.
Morning, council.
Morning.
Project 3, this is County Road South 650 East. The next 3, Project 3, Project 4, you're going to see a little more emphasis on the western side of the community. This would connect Boone Meadow Elementary to Harvest Park. Our understanding is there may be some collaboration needed for these connections for the pathways, probably including the county, potentially Whitestown, and then our community as well. This is also of the 4 projects, the longest linear distance, 6,500 linear feet on the project. There also are a couple challenges that could present themselves through this project, which we understand would maybe exceed some budget limitations potentially. That would be Jones Cemetery, which is on the southern portion of where that pathway would connect. And then also a narrow 2-lane bridge that we'd likely have to make bridge adjustments, which would, as mentioned, probably drive up cost on this pathway connection. But what we do believe is connecting these 2 portions, the elementary school, the park, you're going to see a lot of traffic with our children in the community, which we think obviously for safety reasons is incredibly important. The Royal Run community in Zionsville and the Anson area of Whitestown, they really lack certain pathways that need connected. And this is a reason why this project has been put on our list. And so we wanted to bring this one forward to you as well, as you can see through some of those details there under the project. Go to slide 4, please. Slide 4, this is Ottinger Drive, also Royal Run Boulevard. A shorter linear portion here. This is only 300 feet. We do have some good starting pathways here on the north and south side of Royal Run Boulevard, which turns into 700 East. Really, the concern here is on the southwest portion of that intersection right there on the picture there on the top left. You've got a lot of people that are walking on the north side pathway that cross over, and then they kind of cut the corner there on that southwest portion. There's a little bit of a blind spot and some concern there for safety reasons. We think that this project is certainly something that's feasible that we could address hopefully in the near term. There certainly are some questions with the property owner there on that southwest portion. Our understanding is there may be some willingness to partner there, some continued conversations that could maybe move this project forward. Again, it's a smaller linear portion that we'd like to address, about 300 feet. And so this is why this one made it on the list. There's a lot of kids that travel around that neighborhood with the Hy-Vee coming in. We're not sure what traffic impact will look like. So we want to make sure this is one that could potentially be addressed in the near future. Those are the 4 projects we have. I think any one of us would be happy to answer any additional questions from the council.
First, I would just applaud the work. You guys have been very diligent in looking at what all needs to be done and digging in a little deeper as to even talking to property owners. So we appreciate it. I don't know that anyone would be opposed to any of this. The question is really dollars and timing. And Craig kind of even mentioned that maybe some of this is already accounted for and in the works. I guess the question I would have, and I did go through the budget with Cindy Friday, and maybe it was buried in there. But is some of what you're trying to already accomplish in this particular plan? Have you put forward budget proposals? Do you know if they're already in this initial first draft that we're going to see this afternoon?
Thank you for the question, Vice President Burke. I think we've been careful to stay within our purview as a committee to really bring recommendations forward. We want to make sure that our goal is to really to think about the needs of the community, to try to take input, but and then make those recommendations. And to your point, yes, Project 2, I think, is already in flight. But the other ones, I can't necessarily speak to exact budget estimates or necessarily whether they're included per se. I think we just wanted to bring them forward as recommendations. But that would be kind of where our line of demarcation ends as a committee.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Craig, you would probably be the person who's maybe taking a look at the budget. So the Project 2 is the only one that you'd already mentioned that there may be some dollars short. There's nothing else in this particular budget for any of this.
That's my understanding. And there's two parts to that. I think 2023 has some of the there's two parts: design and then acquisition, and then actual implementation would be following that. So that's 3 years basically on this one project, which is project number 2. So when it comes to budgeting, really, I think, again, this committee was really, they're geared toward advising the council that these are priorities of the Pathways Committee, and we want it all to be heard in front of you today. As we had an appointment of a new member, we thought it was a good timing for that.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be able to see if we can find some dollars. For those who will stick around later, you'll see there's a pretty big budget with a pretty large overrun, and then we got to trim back. So if there's a way to do some of this, and as Josh pointed out, maybe there's some other ways to come at some of this. I just appreciate what y'all are doing.
Yeah, quick question. On the Whitestown Road project, for some reason, I thought that the proposed Wild Air project was going to be building the pathway in front of on Oak Street. Am I wrong in that?
No, I believe that's part of it too. Yeah,
Okay.
that was part of the proposal or agreement, I should say.
Okay.
And then went through.
So that's a significant portion of that project, it looks like.
Did you say Oak, Councilor Choi?
So, Whitestown, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Oak Street too.
Whitestown Road to. All right.
I don't think there was any
Yeah.
conversation around Whitestown in that proposal.
Yeah,
I think
it was Oak, right? Okay. All right. Never mind. Sorry.
Well, absent any other questions, we just want to say thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, next up on new business is a consideration of an ordinance amending the 2023 salary ordinance. This is ordinance 2023-14. And we have HR Director Joe Keel. Morning, Joe.
Good morning. As I have communicated to some of you, and in the memo to the entire town council, Human Resources assumed recruitment and some select administrative duties from police, fire, and other departments in 2021. That time we budgeted for and received a part-time HR coordinator. Since then, additional programming, additional benefits have been added to the support of the employees, and expanded onboarding to full-time, part-time, and seasonal employees, training and development opportunities, coaching, mentoring, and other administrative duties. The industry ratio for HR personnel to employees is 1.4 HR professional for each 100 staff. And as we continue to grow, we should be continuing to provide that same high quality, high touch service for all of the employees. We need to also more equitably divide the current administrative load, establish succession planning for the department. The request is to transition from a part-time to a full-time position. The position is currently vacated and included in the 2024 budget that will be presented. We'd like to have that effective October 1 of this year. No additional funding is needed this year.
Joe, how many employees do we have for the town right now?
Right now, we have about 255. That ebbs and flows with the seasons.
And how many total HR?
2.
Joe, I'm supportive of the request and the position. If we are facing a pretty big budget deficit based on what was presented, and we'll get through that in the next meeting. I'm still supportive. If we approve the salary ordinance and for whatever reason that doesn't make the cut, I'm assuming that it wouldn't be a position you'd hire for, given you wouldn't have budget for it the next year. I don't want to delay this request until after the budget discussion is done, but I kind of want to hedge, not knowing where that direction may go. Does that make sense?
The anticipation or the request is for you to approve it now,
Yeah.
obviously, for us to recruit now.
Yeah.
And have that person in place roughly 1st of October. So it is, the request is not to hedge your bet. The request is to approve it and then know that that's going to be included in 2024.
Well, but I just want to make sure we don't get ourselves in a situation where, for whatever reason, we looked at the budget and that request for 20, I know we don't need to modify the budget this year to accommodate this, but there is a request to add this position next
Certainly.
year. If we don't add that position next year from a budgetary standpoint, even if we approve the salary ordinance, I assume we wouldn't go through with the recruiting process because we wouldn't have that position funded for next year. Otherwise, I'd want to defer this until after the budget discussion to make sure we've got the budget for 2024 but I don't want to delay you. Does that make sense?
Certainly. But you're right. If it's not, if we don't have an agreement that it's going to be included in the 2024 budget, we would not recruit for it.
Yeah, okay.
I would say timeline would be as such that we would probably have a pretty good feel before.
I think we would too.
Before they would even hire somebody, just because of the deadlines associated with the budget. We would know pretty short order, I would imagine.
I agree. I think we may even know after today's discussion.
Yeah.
At a general. And again, I'm supportive of it. I just
Sure.
want to be
Oh, I
pragmatic about it.
understand.
Yeah, I agree. Any other questions from counselors?
So when you said 2 HR persons, currently it's 1.5 HR persons and you're proposing for 2 in
So
2024.
There are 2 people existing in the department, myself and Angie Eggers, who's here in the audience. We have a part-time person on the books, but nobody, it is not filled at this time.
Okay.
Any other questions for Joe? I'd move to approve.
Second.
So I got a motion to introduce ordinance 2023-14 on first reading by Vice President Burke. Second by Counselor Melton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor to 0 opposed.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming we can't fast track this because we don't have all 7 members here. Is that correct? If she wants to start recruiting?
You need a unanimous motion of all of the members to be able to suspend the rules.
Not
So-
just members present?
Correct.
Okay,
Got it. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
thank you. Up next is a consideration of an ordinance regarding solicitation permits. We've got Heather and Captain Sterling and Counselor Melton to present on this.
Okay. Want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, so you have before you consideration of an ordinance regarding house-to-house solicitation. This was a request that was generated from the Zionsville Police Department along with Counselor Melton to update and amend the current house-to-house solicitation requirements. So state statute allows for you to basically license or permit certain vendors to come into the town of Zionsville and to solicit for commercial purposes, home to home. We already had an ordinance in place, but I think there were a number of things that we were trying to accomplish with this particular rewrite. One is we wanted to clarify that this also applied to the rural service district. Currently, the town has an interlocal agreement between the town, Boone County and the Boone County Sheriff's Office to enforce any ordinances in the rural service district on behalf of the town. So we wanted to clarify in this ordinance that that would include house-to-house solicitations. The other thing we wanted to do is to increase and clarify what the requirements were for licensure, really strengthening the process to make sure we had more information about the vendors before they went door to door. Third, we wanted to make sure that what we used to call non-commercial solicitors, which would be Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, they were actually required to register with the police department before they went out into communities. That really wasn't happening, and it's hard to enforce when you're dealing with charitable things like Girl Scouts going door to door. So we really wanted to eliminate that requirement while at the same time strengthening the requirement for the actual commercial solicitors. We also wanted to put in place additional permitting opportunities so that we would have different timeframes for permits. And to clarify that we were looking at specific hours of service. It said like dawn to dusk. That gets a little confusing when you're trying to enforce. So we actually put in hours of operation, so to speak. And then lastly, we wanted to make it more convenient for citizens of the town to refuse door-to-door solicitations. So we put in a language to clearly identify for the solicitors that if someone had a do not trespass or do not solicit sign on their door, that you were not allowed to go to that home or business. And then lastly, and I think importantly, add a new section to the code, which allows for someone in the town to sign up on a no solicitation list. And then that list would be given by list of residents to a solicitor to know, hey, you're not allowed to go to these homes. Many surrounding communities already have that kind of program in place. It makes it much more convenient for someone. And it also helps the solicitors, because if you're walking up to a door and the door is far away and then there's a no solicitation sign, you're already on the property. Therefore, you would be in violation. And then I think the last piece was just giving the chief of police and or his or her designee more authority and more clarity in terms of how to pull a permit, how to find someone who wasn't acting in compliance with the law. We did notice in sort of final review, there was lots of red lines traded back and forth. That there are a couple of amendments that I think we'd like to bring forward for our final reading of this. There are still a couple of places where we still reference those non-commercial solicitors, which would be the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, et cetera. So we do want to go back and remove those, and I can give you the citations. That's actually starting on let's see, I think it starts on section 4, which is 4.5, which is right at the beginning in the definition of a solicitor vendor. It also is on section 8, which is on page 5. There's still a reference in that provision about non-commercial solicitor. And then we also, in the fee language, you'll see a corresponding update to the fees. We did not include a 30-day permit, which is something that the police department would like to add. So we'll just pull the language from the actual fee ordinance into the non-solicitation ordinance and allow for a 30-day permit. What you typically see is vendors coming in for a limited duration. So we're trying to offer some different permitting options, sort of similar to what other communities are doing for a specific period of time. I think that's it. We picked up a few other things in terms of including an increase in the fee. They haven't been updated for a significant period of time. We also designated the actual fund that it would be, all of the money from the fees would be deposited into. And then those fees are used to offset the cost for the police department actually permitting and enforcing the non-solicitation ordinance. Anything else I missed?
We did transfer the responsibility for the background checks. Previously, it was on the applicant to go get a background check from the United States Police and then bring it to us. We transferred that responsibility to us solely. Again, that's another reason for the increase of the fees. We cleaned up the process a little bit internally. to kind of clearly establish what the responsibility of the MAC or the permitting person is versus what our responsibility is versus what the chief's responsibility is. We updated the ID requirements. We also did increase the penalty for non-compliance. But I think other than that, I think that pretty well outlines the changes.
Just from a clarification standpoint, so you commented on section 9 of this, which basically talks about if you post at your home or in the neighborhood a no solicitation sign, it is unlawful for a solicitor. So when we talk about the exempt persons, they are not subject to this.
Correct. So there's a couple of exemptions that are required in the law. One would be for someone who's engaging in political speech. So if you have someone campaigning, for example, they would not be subject to this house-to-house solicitation ordinance. And then previously, as I mentioned, we had sort of charitable organizations which were required to register with the police department before, they went into a neighborhood. This would be, I think of, Boy Scouts selling popcorn, Girl Scouts selling cookies, kids selling Christmas wreaths, before for school. And that's just very hard, one, to police. And I'm not really sure it's the best use of the police department's time. So those individuals would no longer be included in any requirements under this proposed ordinance.
And also the persons engaged in religious speech.
Correct. Sorry. Thank you for picking that one up.
Yeah, I think that just